Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
A good afternoon to you all. I invite you all to take 3 deep breaths to bring yourselves more fully to this moment. As I begin to welcome the ancestors, I would be remiss not to ask for permission, hoping it will be granted by the ancestors and contemporary indigenous communities on whose land we gather for this sacred occasion, the ordination of Carin Marie Bringelson. In doing so, I share excerpts from a local activist leader, Amir Khan, and members of the El Tawad Juma Circle Madison, whose words I offer you now. We seek permission from the federally recognized Native American tribal affiliations in Dane County, the Ojibwe, 6 bands, the Potawatomi, the Oneida, the Mohawk, the Menominee, and the Ho-Chunk. We recognize that Tejope, or 4 Lakes, also known as Madison, and most of Dane County, is primarily the ancestral home of the Ho-Chunk Nation, including sacred burial mounds. Today, roughly 12,000 Ho-Chunk remain alive, and about 300 of them in Dane County now. And we are grateful to them and their ancestors to have the opportunity to live, to work, to play, serve, and worship on their territory. As many of you know, the ritual of welcoming and honoring the ancestors is centuries, if not millennia old, in many cultures and traditions the world over. Today, as we gather, Carin wanted to ensure we pay tribute and gratitude to all of our ancestors. These words largely adapted from the Reverends Tara Little and Christina Shu. From our histories and our ancestors call to us asking, whence we come and how and whither. We are grateful for their gifts, their lessons, and their challenge, calling us into accountability and responsibility to fulfill their hopes and aspirations, for what they dreamed be ours to do. We call on and invoke our parents, grandparents, aunties, and uncles, our siblings across time and place to be here with us. We call on the early Unitarians and Universalists, lay people and ordained ministers who brought our faith tradition to Wisconsin and to the middle of the United States. We call on ancestors of the James Reeb Unitarian Universalist Church and the ancestors of the First Unitarian Society of Madison, who built, grew, and dreamed these congregations and this community into being. We call upon the activist ancestors, those who struggled for justice, freedom, and liberation of all people, who challenge us to honor the fullness of each and every human being. We especially lift up those who battled racism and oppression right here in Madison, which is still alive today. They ask us to join their ongoing struggle to make this city whole. We call upon and honor the beauty of the earth, this particular part of creation that this church ministers in. The many precious lakes, native plants and flowers, our interconnectedness to nature and to the history of the land itself. Now we ask you to call to mind your own particular ancestors, family roots, spiritual mentors, and guides. Each one of us brings into the room our own network of people and places. We have welcomed the great cloud of witnesses to join us for the ordination of Carin Marie Bringelson. Carin, can you feel them? May our ancestors guide us on our way. May they bless this space and time and the work we are about to do. Please, everyone here and virtually, join us in saying, ancestors, be with us. Ancestors, be with us.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Welcome to the ordination of Carin Bringelson. It is a great joy to welcome you here to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. Today we gather in gladness, in celebration, in gratitude. We gather with the members and friends of the James Reeb Unitarian Universalist congregation. We gather with Carin's family and friends, colleagues near and far. It is an honor to take part in this ritual of ordination. In our tradition, it is our congregations who officially bestow this honor and set someone apart as a minister. The Unitarian Universalist Association provides a rigorous formation process for a candidate, but they do not do this. In Unitarian Universalist ministry, we call one of us, one of our own, to rise up to lead. To all the members of the James Reeb Unitarian Universalist congregation, I say, I hope you are proud. You raised up a minister. Today we honor and affirm all that you saw within Carin. You saw her prophetic voice. You saw her pastoral presence, her commitment, her passion, and her love. You knew that she would lead our movement with wisdom and compassion. Over the past 2 years, the First Unitarian Society has witnessed and affirmed all that you saw within Carin. It has been a great gift for all of us to have a role in her ministerial formation. The power of this moment, this act of ordination, it lies in all of us. We who are gathered here as witnesses to Carin's commitment and our commitment to her, our love for her and for this faith tradition we share. So allow me to welcome you here. Welcome to this time of great celebration.
Like Kelly, I am so pleased and grateful that the James Reeb congregation and the First Unitarian Society have chosen to ordain you, Carin, into the Unitarian Universalist ministry together. In our faith tradition, as Kelly said, only congregations may ordain ministers, and it feels right and good for us to be sharing this sacred act. Let us take a moment and prepare ourselves for what is about to come. Today, we are recognizing Carin as a minister, and we will confer upon her the authority to serve our faith tradition as her call leads her to. We who are of these two congregations have grown to know Carin and her ministry, and with this act, we will set her apart from us to take up her life's work to serve other congregations and Unitarian Universalism. We do this because we know this is her call, and we trust her and we believe in her. And so, whether you are one of the few people in this room or someone who's taking part in this occasion through the interconnected World Wide Web, I invite you to take a centering breath and let it go. Let your heart open to the energy that moves within us and between us, and come in. Come in to this time made sacred by our presence and our intention. Come in, knowing deep within you that we are together, here to release a living force of love and justice into our faith and into our world. Come in. Let us begin.
Many contemporary Unitarian Universalist communities begin their worship services, gatherings, and celebrations with the lighting of a chalice. Today, we are following suit. As members of the Unitarian Universalist campus ministry in Madison, Wisconsin, and the 20s 30s group of the First Unitarian Society of Madison, we invite you to find a chalice that you can light wherever you are.
We light our chalices in honor of Carin and her ministry.
May the chalice be to us a symbol of the mentorship and collaborative spirit which she has brought.
May the flame remind us of the giving of her wisdom and her caring heart.
Today we celebrate all that Carin has taught and shared with us, and all she will teach and share in the years to come.
We light our chalices
For the gift of life.
For loving people.
And for truth, hope, and freedom.
Please join us in singing our opening hymn, number 126, Come Thou Font of Every Blessing. We invite you to rise in body and in spirit.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come thou fount of every vision, lift our hearts to what may come. See the lion and the lambkin dwell together in thy home. Hear our cries of war fall silent, feel our love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us find ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thy hateful fount of justice, earthly fare as heaven above.
Snow finds wisdom and inspiration in picture books. She chose this one, called Thank You, Amu, for me to read today because it reminds her of relational community at its best. When we share the best we have to offer, she says, it comes back round when we need it, and we get to feel gratitude for the experience of giving and receiving. On the corner of First Street and Long Street, on the very top floor, Amu was cooking a thick red stew in a big fat pot for a nice evening meal. She seasoned it and stirred it and took a small taste. "What a delicious stew," Amu said. "Tonight's dinner will surely be the best I have ever had." With that, Amu put down her spoon and went to read a book before supper. As the thick red stew simmered on the stove, its scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street, and around the block until, knock, someone was at the door. When Amu opened it, she saw a little boy. "Little boy," Amu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "I was playing with the race car down the hall when I smelled the most delicious smell," the little boy replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." Stew," he sighed. "That sure sounds yummy." Amu thought for a moment. She was saving her stew for dinner, but she had made quite a bit. It would not hurt to share. "Would you like some?" The little boy nodded. And so Amu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Amu," the little boy said, and went on his way. This knocking and this exclamation of, "Ah, stew," and this sharing of stew happened again and again and again. And the visits always ended with, "Thank you, Amu." Soon, the sky darkened, the streetlights brightened, and it was finally time for dinner. But when Amu opened her big fat pot of thick red stew for her nice evening meal, it was empty. Amu sniffled. "There goes the best dinner I ever had." Sorry and blue, she sat at the table with her empty pot until, knock, 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 knock. Who could that be? Amu wondered. When she opened her door, she saw the little boy, the police officer, the hot dog vendor, the shop owner, the cab driver, the doctor, the actor, the lawyer, the dancer, the baker. Why, everyone she fed today was at her door. "I'm sorry, everyone," Amu sighed. "My thick red stew is all gone. I have nothing left to share." The little boy tugged at Amu's sleeve. "Don't worry, Amu. We are not here to ask. We are here to give." The police officer carried in a fresh salad. The mayor entered with a roast chicken. The baker brought a collection of sweet goodies. Even the little boy presented Amu with something special in a shiny red envelope. Everyone who had knocked on Amu's door that day squeezed inside her tiny apartment, and together they ate, danced, and celebrated. While Amu's big fat pot of thick red stew was empty, her heart was full of happiness and love. That dinner was the best she had ever had. Thank you, Amu.
One of the many gifts of the rite of ordination is that it is filled with invitations for emboldened and embodied worship. And so I'm honored to introduce the invitation to generosity because it is such an experience. As is always the intention for a call to share from one's abundance, this time invites us to think deeply about our faith, and from that depth to respond as we may. And this response is not just about the money that we share, but all of the ways that these moments of intention may inspire our generous living. Today's recipients meaningfully engage that generosity and invite us to understand it as something that is both rooted in our history, enlivened by our present, and always oriented towards our future. The Living Tradition Fund is a long-standing source of life-saving assistance for Unitarian Universalist ministers in the midst of life emergencies and or finding themselves in financial difficulty, especially because of educational debt. And over the years, I've heard so many poignant testimonials of the comfort and tangible support that this fund has offered to a phenomenal number of our colleagues. The other recipient, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, draws from a legacy that is steeped in both our continuing promise as a collective of congregations and the heartbreaking disappointment of our past. This invites us, our entire tradition, to remain engaged in the ongoing work of improving the lives of Black Unitarian Universalists, remaining accountable for our past, open, humble, and inviting of the change that is necessary for our present, and always seeking a transformative, energized path to the future. This fund, in its work, seeks to bring into alignment our deepest values as Unitarian Universalists. And so, as our offering music is offered to us, I invite you to use the guidance of the slide to find the button to click so that you may give generously as you are able, to find a way of embodying our values in the deepest way possible. May the offering now be given and received in love and abundance.
You say your heart's been turned to stone. You say you wanna be left alone. You say love only made you weep and moan. Let me tell you something that you know in your bones. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. You say your soul's like a dry riverbed. Stop waiting for the water long ago. You said you better pray all night for the rain instead. Life comes like a tidal wave over your head. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. You say waiting for love takes too long. Dulls a sharp mind, weakens a strong. Well, you may be right, but you may be wrong, 'cause life can make a mountain come tumbling down. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. The river washes over every woman and man, feet in the gravel and mud in your hands. Nothing can stand against love's command. Every boulder turns into a grain of sand. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is a power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
Hi, Carin. Congratulations on joining the band of Reebers who've become ministers. I have today's reading, an excerpt from Nobody Knows My Name by James Baldwin. The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. For nothing is fixed. Forever and forever and forever, it is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the sea engulfs us, and the light goes out.
Amidst a pandemic, connection is a fraught word. To flatten the curve of infection, we stay apart. We see each other beyond our households, if at all, in 2 dimensions, not 3. And while we are mostly grateful for this technology, the video squares we occupy remind us of our physical separation. We can talk about connection all we want, but staring at the screen, it is hard for us to feel. 2 images come to mind right now. The first is a famous photograph, Earthrise. It was taken on Christmas Eve in 1968 when the astronauts aboard Apollo 8 floating in the blackness of deep space as they orbited the moon. They looked out and they saw the Earth perfectly illuminated by the sun, trained for the physical demands of the journey and the work of science. Nothing in that era had prepared any of the 3 of them to see our planet adrift in the cosmos. They were filled with awe as they scrambled for cameras, including that newfangled thing called colored film, to share with the world an image, even though it was unauthorized. One photograph shifted the common understanding of our planet from a globe, that is, that model, that sort of thing that's kept on teachers' desks or in public libraries with its pastel and well-defined countries. It redefined that to a single swirling blue and white marble, adrift in the cosmos with no real divisions. Poet Archibald MacLeish wrote in the New York Times the next day, quote, "To see the earth as it truly is, to see the earth as it truly is, small and blue and beautiful in the eternal silence where it floats, is to see ourselves as riders on the earth together, brothers on that bright loveliness in the eternal cold, brothers who know now that they are truly brothers," end quote. I apologize for the dated and non-inclusive language, and so let us understand it as riders on the earth, siblings who know now, and dare I say know forevermore, they are siblings. In that one photo, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper's words from 100 years earlier come alive. She said, we are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity. Now, as a black woman born free in Baltimore in 1825, Harper was both a member of AME churches and Unitarian churches. And by her living, she knew, as we are coming at long last to confront, that both the liberal church and this country have been formed and sustained by a culture which protected and profited those with white skin on the backs of those with darker tones. She warned us. Though her words were spoken at the Civil Rights Convention in 1866, she warned us now that if uncorrected, unaddressed, our misdeeds would curse our own soul. And so, dear ones, the reckoning has come. More and more aware that we are bound together, we, especially those of us of fairer skin, are confronted with a past steeped in racism, white superiority, brutality, fear, and greed. The blue and white marble is still so beautiful, but the image is no longer novel. Our collective breath no longer catches with awe. More and more pixels are available to us rather than revealing us to be a bundle of humanity steeped in understanding that is bound together. We show riders on the earth isolated in pockets amidst fires of separation. Fire, then, is the other image in my mind's eye. Across 13 states in the West, 47 fires have claimed over 400 acres of land this summer, which will remain charred until new growth takes hold. Fires have ignited, literally and more metaphorically, on our city streets, as voices from the margins move to the center to say, enough! We can't breathe! Stop killing us! Black lives matter. Of course the fires are related. Of course they're related. Wildfires are on the rise as climate grows warmer and drier due to drought. Those conditions contribute to the spread of the mountain pine beetle and other instincts that weaken and kill trees, effectively turning our forests into fuel. Our climate has changed due to the excesses wrought by unfettered empire. And the Reverend Dr. James Cone, now of blessed memory, described it like this. The logic that led to slavery and segregation in the Americas, colonization and apartheid in Africa, and the rule of white supremacy throughout the world is the same one that leads to the exploitation of animals and the ravaging of nature. It is mechanistic and instrumental logic that defines everything and everybody in terms of their contribution to the development and defense of white world supremacy. And so the fires that claim the forest are also claiming the people whose lives were deemed too insignificant to warrant protection from landfills, air pollution, and toxic waste. We know this, right? We know this. The legacy of colonization and industrialization weighs heavily on us in our current reality. Yet, may our heads now not bow in despair, but rather in conviction and humility. For our faith calls us to see and use the destructive power of fire and harness it for good. And the good news is this has been done before. Throughout human history, Fire has touched everything. Fire has enabled humans to leave the warmth of their own caves and create it elsewhere. Fire has allowed people to gather, tools to be crafted for hunting and building. By controlling fire, engines were created and industry formed. Medical care grew to include diagnostics and prescriptions. Most things in our world trace their origin to fire. And without harnessing fire, civilization wouldn't exist as it is, at least according to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He was a respected paleontologist and Jesuit priest. Teilhard's life was devoted equally to science and religion. For him, the accomplishments of science ought ultimately cause us to cherish and worship something greater than ourselves, and to celebrate the sacred, which for him was the heart and the soul of the world itself. Someday, he said, someday after we have mastered the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we will harness the energies of love. And when we do, for the second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire. Harnessing love is necessary for the human family to evolve and shape a world worthy of passing to our children's children's children. It is the quest of becoming an ancestor, not an inhabitant of the beloved community. For Teilhard, love is the most universal, the most tremendous, and the most mysterious of all the cosmic forces. Love is both human and divine. Divine love, he said, is the energy that has brought the universe into being and binds it together. And human love is whatever energy we use to help divine love achieve its greatest purpose. You know, this calls to mind our own forebears, the Universalists who taught us God is a loving God, and there is no way to fall outside of that love. Or as we sometimes sing in the words of Rebecca Parker, there is a love holding us. There's a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. We rest in this love. And yet, we do not rest on our laurels. It was the Unitarians, through the words of Theodore Parker, who reminded us that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice, but the bend happens not by idle hopes and wishes, but by the weight of our lived commitments. You see, our country and our religion may have well been shaped by a culture of white supremacy, but not by that alone. As the brilliant theologian, my colleague, the Reverend Sophia Betancourt, describes, quote, "We are also the inheritors of an unimaginable grace, of certainty in the possibility of redemption, of weaving a tapestry of leadership that may not yet be what we long for, but is called to be the richest expression of humanity's sacredness. We believe in human capacity great enough, a God loving enough, values strong enough, communities dedicated enough, and leaders humble enough to move us toward redemption." And so it is. So it is that we call ourselves anew to harness the energy of fire, this time the power of love, knowing that it is love and only love that wears down the rock. It is love that wears down the hardness in our hearts, love that dissolves the walls of indifference and arrogance, and love that erodes historical narratives that center some and marginalize others and undergirds an immunity to change. And it is love that embraces the alchemy of connection, the transformation made possible when we gather in love to add to the sum of love and justice in the world in the service of our collective liberation. It won't be easy. This is not an easy thing. As poet Audre Lorde reminded us, we have been taught, we have been raised to stay separate and be afraid. She said, for those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of a decision, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so that their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. The heavy-footed hoped to silence us. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. And when the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. And when our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. And when our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So said Lord, it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. It is better to speak, to connect, to love. For if we are to harness fire, by that I mean love, it will take all of us, siblings who know we are siblings and that our destiny is inseparable one from another. Desmond Tutu told us as much. He said, liberation is costly and it needs unity. Now, this is not new for us. Our forebears elevated the congregation by naming its work, its purpose as covenantal. That is, to commit ourselves, each of us, to the common good. Our free churches were formed, as Alice Blair Wesley reminded us, quote, so that we may help each other to find over and over in 1,000 different frames and settings what are our own worthiest loves, and therefore what these loves now require of us. Our earliest churches described themselves, according to Wesley, as loving God and loving one another so well that in their own study and discussion, dispute and conference, prayer, consultation, and discussion, the members would learn together the divine will of the loving God for the whole society insofar as that will relates to justice, peace, and reasonable laws. And once discerned, the members would be called, compelled, bound to proclaim it and try to bring it to bear in their whole society. Because, friends, we knew then what we know now. We need one another. We call and shape and create and ordain ministers to remind us of this, to keep us each and all connected to that larger mission, to learn to love so well that we bring it to bear in the world, and by that love shape a new human society. The Reverend Sophia Bethencourt said, quote, we must re-sacralize what has been desecrated through dominance and oppression. We must relinquish our control over the meaning of faithful living and center anew learning on those whose collective survival and promised liberation can truly remake the world, end quote. You know, Teilhard said, what paralyzes life is lack of faith and lack of audacity. We cannot avoid this conclusion, he said. It is biologically evident that to gain control of passion and so make it serve spirit must be a condition of progress. And it was James Baldwin who said the same thing in the 1960s. You heard it in our reading. He said, the world is before you, and you need not take or leave it as it was when you came in. For nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. The earth is always spinning. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises. The light falls. Lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the sea engulfs us, and the light goes out. End quote. The moment, friends, the moment we cease to hold each other, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. May this be the day where, despite physical distance, we are awakened to the power that is in our midst and the call of our faith to harness fire for a second time upon this earth, to love one another, to care for one another, to love one another and love one more still. In the name of all that is holy, for the sake of this planet and all life upon it, love one another. Love one another. Love one another. May it be so. Will you pray with me? Divine love, Holy of holies, name without naming, witness our fear and our separation, our anger and our despair. Refire our hearts with your love. Bind us anew in union that together the injustice that birthed us will at long last be refashioned into a merciful justice that holds us all in love. Amen.
In the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism, our congregations are the only entity with the authority and privilege to ordain a minister. It is a moment of profound joy for congregations to recognize one who has answered the call to ministry as their life's work. For in doing so, we are declaring our belief in the future of our progressive religious movement. Today, we are here to affirm the call and confer ordination upon Carin Bringelson. Carin, you have opened yourself to the deep work of preparation for ministry. Having received the recommendation of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Association and by the authority of the Board of the First Unitarian Society of Madison and by the authority of the members of James Reeb Unitarian Universalist Congregation, it is our joy and our privilege to offer you ordination on this day. Are you, Carin, prepared formally and fully to take upon yourself the yoke of ministry, mindful of both the responsibilities and the joys, the privileges and the duties of ordained ministry in this Unitarian Universalist tradition?
Yes, I am.
Members of the James Reeb Unitarian Universalist Congregation, we have been on this journey with Carin for more than 20 years, watching her grow in depth and in knowledge. Members of First Unitarian Society, we have watched Carin continue to develop her leadership these last 2 years with our campus ministry program, as well as in her preaching and teaching. As members of both congregations, this ordination is a time when we acknowledge our own calling to be engaged and active partners in our covenantal faith. Together, we affirm our commitment to the shared ministry of Unitarian Universalism. Are we prepared now to renew these commitments by conferring ordination upon Carin Bringelson? If so, please say, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Will the members of the James Reeb Unitarian Universalist Congregation and of First Unitarian Society of Madison please raise their hands and together say the following words posted on the screen or found in your order of service. We, the members of JRUUC and FUS, do hereby ordain you, Carin Bringelson, to the ministry of Unitarian Universalism. We charge you to carry out a transformative ministry rooted in integrity, wholeness, and playfulness, helping to heal our broken world with love and compassion. We challenge you to strive to offer a presence of radical welcome, speak for a prophetic truth to power, co-create justice in our world, celebrate the mystery and wonder of life, foster connection and community, journey with others in their joys and sorrows, and inspire all to live boldly and authentically. By the authority of our living tradition, we joyfully ordain you to the Unitarian Universalist ministry.
With deep joy and great gratitude, I humbly accept this Unitarian Universalist ministry to which you ordain me. With love, courage, and creativity guiding my way, I pledge myself to nurture compassion and loving kindness, to bear witness to the pain and promise of life, to work to create healing and justice in our world, and to embody the living tradition of our faith. I dedicate myself to this work, knowing that, like those who came before me and those who will come after, I do not do this alone.
Will all others who are present today, Carin's family, friends, and colleagues, please join in an affirmation of this ordination. Please raise your hands, and together Say the following words as posted on the screen or in your order of service. Carin, with joy and pride, we affirm your ordination. May your ministry nourish you and become a source of healing in the world. We pledge to travel alongside you in the ways of love and compassion, peace and justice. Carin, may you minister with your whole self, heart and mind, body and spirit. May you continue to learn, grow, and live into this call for all of your days. Let the people say, Amen.
And before you sit down, I have a gift for you. For each of you, as representatives of the congregations who have supported me in my ministry thus far. This is a token of our appreciation from Bev and I. Thank you.
Carin's ordination committee asked Colleen O'Hara, a member of JRUUC, if she would be willing to create a stole for Carin's ordination. Of course, she said yes. Colleen is also Carin's longtime neighbor, friend, and cat sitter. Here are some of her thoughts that led to the creation of this stole. Dear Carin, it has been an honor and a joy to create this stole for you on behalf of our congregation. You shared 2 requests with me. First, that the stole be in your favorite colors, purple and green. Second, would I try to include a fabric swatch you received from seminary classmates, even if it needed to be on the back side? Of course I will. Then COVID-19 arrived. Fabric stores closed, and the color green became a challenge. Bev had told me that teal was also a color you really liked. I needed to adapt. So I hope purple and teal are okay with you. What should the stole look like? I settled on 3 words that I believe will be reflected in your ministry. The first is justice. Carin, you are a justice advocate and worker. It is a lens through which you speak, act, and live. The second word is peace. Peace is clearly important to you. My emails from you always end with warm words such as thanks, peace, see you soon, and your name. This closing is also followed by 3 lines. Peace in my heart, peace in my home, and peace in my world. The third word is love. The well of love inside you is deep and full. It has been fed by many, and you share it freely and generously. How do I show justice and peace on a stole? In the end, I chose a direct approach and simply included the words justice and peace. They are woven into the purple color of the background, much as they are woven into your character. It creates an image that feels right to me. It feels like you. And how to put love in your stole. The chalice image is our JRUUC chalice. Please know that it is overflowing with love for you from all of us at JRUUC. I didn't forget the fabric swatch representing Meadville Lombard. It's there, even though you can't see it. I cut a heart from the square and sandwiched it in between the layers of the stole, placing it right behind the chalice. The love, friendship, and wisdom of your seminary classmates will go with you too. Finally, a comment about the background fabric. There are many small circles which I imagined as people. Some represent the people you have known and touched and loved along the way, and there are many more representing all those whose paths you have yet to cross as you begin your ministry. All of us at JRUUC send our love and gratitude to you for the many gifts you have shared with us. Best wishes on your journey, justice, peace, and love. James Reeb, Unitarian Universalist Congregation.
The laying on of hands is a tradition that signifies the covenant of ministry that we affirm and share with Carin. It is a touch of connection and recognition that we travel a path alongside each other, sharing and supporting one another along the way. It is a touch which says we will share hope as well as disappointment, celebration as well as weariness, clarity as well as confusion, frustration as well as success. It is a touch of our shared humanness, a touch that says you are not alone. You need not walk this journey alone. Today, this touch will be given by Carin's family. I invite those here in this space to come and form an outer circle surrounding Carin. And all of you watching from wherever you are, I invite you to energetically join us, placing your hands over your heart, or your palms together, or your hands outstretched, bringing you into this space with us here. Together we create a web of connection, life, love, and blessing. My friends, we are gathered here by a common calling, a shared prayer that our lives be guided by the great love that connects us all. We are part of a long tradition of faith and practice, of memory and hope, of love and justice, a living tradition that echoes across the generations to this room on this day. Within this web of connection, let us take a deep breath, feeling the spirit of life that moves within and between us all as we lift our hearts in prayer. Spirit of life, holy mystery that holds us and sustains us. Through our presence today, may your love be present. In our reaching out to one another, may you reach out to us all. May you lay your love and blessings upon Carin. May she know infinite love. May she share this love with all the creatures of the earth and sky, with all people, including herself. In her quest to create a ministry of connection, a ministry of bringing people together, finding healing, wholeness, and new life. Grant her curiosity and discipline that she may continue to grow in faith. Grant her humility and strength that she may both lead and listen. Grant her courage and conviction that she may speak her truth in love and work for peace and justice. Grant her compassion and kindness that she may bring hope and comfort to those who suffer. Grant her passion and purpose that she may be an inspiration. As you share these gifts with Carin, grant her also the wisdom and skill to recognize, nourish, and uplift these gifts in others. We also pray this day that in times of challenge, may Carin remember the joy and gratitude of this moment and the love of this community. Help her remember that the spirit of life runs through her body. Help her remember that the work of ministry is never done alone. Eternal One, may you bless Carin's ministry so that her ministry may be a blessing to this world. And let the people say, Amen.
Hi, Carin. I am thrilled and blessed to have been asked to bring you collegial greetings, and more importantly, to have watched you journey and grow into this calling. I bring these greetings, and I bring more than that. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the greetings and the right hand of fellowship, which goes all the way back to the Bible and Paul in Galatians when he was welcoming new apostles into doing the work of ministry. Because the right hand of fellowship is more than a greeting or simply a welcome. It's a symbol of covenant, of mutual affection and fidelity to that covenant. A covenant to reach out to each other, to hold ourselves and each other accountable to that covenant, to give support and when needed, challenge. And what of this covenant? What of this promise, this sacred promise? I think the purpose statement of our Ministers Association speaks deeply to what this covenant is. It is to call forth courageous and transformative ministries, empowered by love, committed to collective liberation, because we need one another. In this time when we cannot be in person or extend the right hand of fellowship, or all the many ways we physically mark this covenant, I ask that instead you place your hand on your heart. Carin, I welcome you into the great cloud of witnesses of your colleagues, the ones who have come before us, the ones present with us today, and those who will follow. May you be faithful to this covenant. May your ministry be always empowered by love, courageous, liberating, and transforming, and always remembering that we need one another. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, my colleague.
Thank you.
To my dearest friend Carin Marie Bringelson, to those gathered here and others with us virtually, I am forever grateful that you have invited me to take part in this sacred occasion in your life to offer the charge to the minister. I am humbled to provide the charge in light of the deep and wide history we have shared for 20 years as friends, Unitarian Universalists, and now as ministerial colleagues. The stated purpose of this charge is to continue to invite you into deeper relationship with yourself, with your immediate family, to the congregations who today ordain you as you move forward into your days-old ministry with the folks at Lake Country Unitarian Universalist Church in Heartland, Wisconsin. Critical to this charge is your need to continue to nurture your rich self-care practices of yoga, meditation, biking, walking, laughing, really healthy eating, and family time that you do for yourself and for your beloved Bevo. I am called to encourage you to pay even more attention to your growing edges in these early days of your ministry. As you and Bevo have long been deeply committed to leading lives through lenses of dismantling white supremacy culture, especially as it relates to perfectionism, I invite you to continue to discern what new behaviors and religious commitments you will make towards personal and ministerial practice to embody demonstrative, anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural work. The work beyond what you have known and felt to be comfortable with up to this point in your life. I charge you to be more personally engaged in the marginalized communities in Heartland and beyond. For as we know, this moment is showing we all must do more work to bring the beloved community into being for more peoples. As you know, you are not alone in this monumental, holy task. For today, you have the support of these congregations and the people of the Heartland congregation. You are also joining the other 1,867 Unitarian Universalist ministerial colleagues in our denomination's highest aspirations in this work. My beloved Carin, I humbly charge you to trust yourself. You have prepared well for this moment. It is time. Time to continue to go out and share the good news of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Blessed be, Amen, Ashe, Shalom, and Salom.
Hello and greetings. I am Leah Angiri, lucky to be Carin's mentor these last years. Members and friends of James Reeb Unitarian Universalist Congregation and First Unitarian Society, as you jointly ordain the Reverend Carin Bringelson, I offer you 3 charges. 1, be proud. You have supported Carin by being places of wonder and depth. You nurtured her vocational discernment. You gave her space to grow and risk and return. You helped her get to a sacred yes. Good job. 2, now your relationship must shift. It's not over, but it's different. Carin is no longer your fellow member who mingles among you. She isn't on your ministry team anymore. You'll need to mourn these changes as losses. They are worthy of grief. 3, keep loving Carin while letting her go. She is not yours in the ways she was, but she is still of you and with you. In this sense, you will always share ministry. I also have a rogue charge for Lake Country UU Church. You got a kick-ass minister. Now you get to be proud too. You get to love her and to protect that sacred yes. I charge you to do this by trusting Carin. Let her into your hearts and your governance structure. Call her when you are scared and angry. When you know joy, let her rejoice with you. Embrace Bev, but give her space. Demand Carin take her vacation, study leave, and regular days off. Teach her how to lead you. She won't know how unless you collaborate generously with her. Each of us attending is here, at least in part, because we know the value of a sacred yes. It is both the domain of the professional minister, formed and ready, like Carin, and a subtle, shimmering truth. We are all called to live lives of meaning. We each have our own sweet, hard, sacred yes. Life charges us all to seek it. Now it is time to come and go, both because our service is nearing its end, and also because it is always and forever time to come and go to a land with freedom and justice. As we are called to the work of this Unitarian Universalist faith again and again, I invite you now to join me in singing Come and Go with me.
That land, come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. In that land, there'll be freedom in that land. That land where I'm born. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm born. In that land, there will be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm born. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm born.
Me to that land where there is freedom and justice and collective liberation. Come and go with me to that land where we give deep thanks in a spirit of humility and respect for all the people of the First Nations on whose land we live. Come and go with me to that land where we honor the lessons and the love that the ancestors have provided to us for this day. Come and go with me to that land where, as we extinguish our chalice flames, both our individual and collective, we remember that the love that warms our hearts will never be extinguished. Come and go with me, dear beloveds, to harness the love. Blessed be, and amen.
Every time I feel this way, this old familiar sinking, I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. By and by, where the river will never run dry. You ask, so shall you receive. So take from me these troubles, bring me sweet release, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. I'm gonna let myself be lifted by and by. I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. There is a river in this heart of hearts, with a knowingness of my highest good. I am willing, and I will do my part, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. I'm gonna let myself be lifted. I'm gonna let myself be lifted by and by. I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. Where the river will never run dry. This river